guys, I'm Brian with Pintech. I'm here to talk to you today about the Alesis Trigger I/O used with our Pintech drums and the Alesis DM5 module. There are several reasons why the Alesis I/O is a good product to have. Number one is price. The Alesis Trigger I/O sells for about $150 street price. Convenience. Using the Alesis Trigger I/O, you can actually mount your DM5 module into a rack case with any of your other hardware. That way it's protected and it's easier to move, and the Alesis I/O would mount on your drum rack and it's going to take up a lot less space. And the third reason is because the Alesis Trigger I/O allows you to have capabilities that the DM5 normally wouldn't have. Those capabilities are dual zone features such as your snare drum with a rim shot. It'll allow you to have chokeable crash cymbals, and it'll also allow you to use a ride cymbal with a bell. Also, if you're recording, the Alesis I/O comes pre-packaged with BFD Lite. It's a software version of a drum module. It uses real drum sampling. What that does, it allows you to record right onto a computer straight from your electronic drum set. It's a triggered MIDI device, and what that means is it doesn't produce any sounds on its own. It relies on sounds from another source. While that may sound complicated, I'll show you here in just a minute how easy it is to hook the I/O up to your DM5 and get your drum kit going. Now we're going to look at the back of the Trigger I/O and the DM5 so I can show you how easy it is to hook the two up together. All of your drums, cymbals, and hi-hat control pedal are going to plug into the back of the I/O. All of the jacks are marked. You'll see number 1's labeled as kick drum, toms 1, 2, and 3 are all labeled, etc. When you get up to 9 and 10, you'll actually notice that these two are still empty. That's because I'm not using those with this kit, so I still have room for expansion. The hi-hat controller is off to the right. It's over here by itself. That's where you'll plug in your hi-hat control pedal. And then you've also got your MIDI out. That's what we're going to use to connect to the DM5. You're going to use a standard MIDI cable, which can be purchased at just about any music retailer. You're going to plug one end of the MIDI cable in to the Alesis Trigger I/O where it says MIDI out, and then we'll look on the DM5 where it says MIDI in, and you're going to plug the other end of the cable into the MIDI in on the module. Once you've done that, you're hooked up. Make sure you've got the power cord to both the DM5 and the I/O connected, power on both up, and then you'll start adjusting the settings on both the DM5 and on your Alesis I/O to get them exactly where you want them. Let's talk about the different features of the Alesis Trigger I/O. The first section are the function up and down buttons, and they allow you just to change between the different features on the I/O. It'll take you, say, from gain down to threshold or to crosstalk, and then eventually back to the drum kit feature. The next buttons are the value buttons. You'll use those, for example, say you want to increase or decrease the gain. You would use the function button to scroll over to where it says gain. You'll see the little light light up beside it, and then you'll use the up or down buttons to change the gain setting. The first area in the I/O we're going to talk about is the kit section. That's where you would store the different settings for your kit. For example, if you're using the I/O with, say, the DM5 and you're also using it with the BFD Lite program that it comes with, you might store your Alesis settings for the DM5 on kit 0, and you might have different settings for BFD stored on number 1 kit. You have up to 20 user programmed kits. The next section we're concerned with is the trigger MIDI note. What that does is the note is what's sent out from the device to the sound producing source, in this case the DM5 module. What you'll do is you'll tap the drum or cymbal that you're using, and you'll change the value to a different number until you get the appropriate sound that you're looking for. For example, number 38 is flashing. Generally, number 38 is your snare drum setting. Once you made any changes, make sure you use your function button and go back up to the kit area so that the changes are stored. The next section is the gain. The gain is basically the sensitivity of the drum or cymbal. If a drum is too loud, you may turn the gain down. If for some reason your drum is not picking up certain hits or it's not loud enough, you would increase the gain. The next section is the velocity curve. For our purposes with Pintech products, you're always going to select the LIN, which is linear curve. The next area is the threshold setting. The threshold has to do with how loud a soft hit will produce a sound. Generally, you want to have that set as high as you possibly can so that your drums are more dynamic. You don't want your softer hits to produce an extremely loud sound. As you increase the threshold, those softer hits will produce a lower sound, and your louder strikes will produce a louder volume. It makes your drums more dynamic, and it also makes it so that you can play accented notes a little better. The crosstalk feature, what crosstalk is, for example, when you had two drums mounted on the same drum rack, if you hit tom 1, the vibration can go from the drum through the rack into tom 2. That's considered crosstalk if it triggers that second tom falsely. You can raise the crosstalk to prevent that from happening. The re-trigger, it's also known as re-trigger cancel. And what that does is it prevents double triggering. For example, it's used highly on your kick drum because sometimes when you strike a mesh head kick, you'll get a secondary beat if you bury the beater into the head. You can raise the re-trigger cancel so that it'll cancel that secondary note out. You have to be careful when you use this feature because if you set it too high, then if you're using double bass or fast bass drum patterns, sometimes those secondary intentional hits will also be cut out. The last section we're going to talk about is the trigger type. Generally for Pintech products there are only two settings. The PP setting, which is piezo, that's what our drums are made out of. That's the type of electronic element they use. You'll also use that setting for single zone cymbals. If you're using a dual zone cymbal, such as a chokeable crash or a ride with a bell, you're going to select the PS, and that's piezo switch. That's the type of electronic components we use with our dual zone cymbals. Now you'll notice that we've scrolled through and the kit light is flashing. If you've made any changes, always make sure you use your function up button to get back to the kit feature. That way all of your changes will be saved. You'll notice now that we're back on kit, the light's no longer flashing. That indicates any changes that I made have been saved.